So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Susan Wessler, the Neil and Rochelle Campbell Presidential Chair for Innovation in Science Education, Distinguished Professor of Genetics at the University of California at Riverside. Thank you very much.
Okay, I want to thank first Norm for the invitation. And I'm going to start right away, if I can figure this out. All right, so you're wrong. The majority is wrong in terms of the PhDs. And we have a huge problem in our country. And that is that, first of all, of the STEM workforce, our entire scientific workforce is aging for a number of reasons. But the STEM workforce is particularly problematic for two reasons. One is that it is the oldest workforce. It's the least diverse. It's the whitest, the most male workforce. And unfortunately, unlike other areas, as you'll see in a second, we're doing a really lousy job to replenish this workforce nationwide. And I'm talking about the United States here. I'm not talking about the whole world. So a couple of years ago, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a major paper that came out by some real luminaries in biological sciences, including Bruce Alberts, Shirley Tillman, Mark Kirshner, and others. And they drew the attention to the public, and they said that there's a glut of PhDs. And so everywhere I go now, you know, when I talk about graduate training or undergraduate training, it's like, well, why do we need that? There's this huge glut in PhDs. And in fact, that's not correct for all areas. So specifically, yes, there has been a tremendous growth in the number of PhDs worldwide in the biomedical sciences, in sciences that reflect health sciences. It's not the case in agriculture, in agricultural science. What's even worse than that is in the plant sciences. So basic plant, there has not been an increase in the number of PhDs in the basic plant sciences in close to 40 years. So we are maintaining a constant level, low level, despite the explosion in ag biotech and in other areas. And we talked yesterday, I mean, most of the day, you know, what, for those of you who weren't here, one of the conclusions is that what is going to solve our problems is people. And people who are going to innovate and people who are going to use those innovations. And the problem is that in this country, we are not producing those people. So why is that? The one thing is money, okay? Money in the plant sciences and the agricultural sciences has decreased in the United States over the last couple of years. And you could see here, the increase in China and in India, especially China, there's been a massive increase. In 2006, China passed the United States in its support for agricultural sciences. And that has continued, and you could see that in the United States it has gone down, and I'm sorry to say that recently one of the major programs that fund the plant sciences, the NSF Plant Genome Program, was cut in half this year. So things are even, this is in 2018 out here, things are getting worse and worse. The total money for competitive science, for plant sciences in this country is about $300 million. The total funding, public funding, that compares to $40 billion in biomedical sciences, okay? And I think as we heard yesterday, you know, most of the undergraduates that come into our program, probably who are interested in STEM, about 70% of them or so are interested in MDs. They want to be a doctor. At Riverside, approximately 60 or 70% are interested in going to medical school. We don't tell them this, but 50 out of 1,000 students who are interested will get into medical school. And the problem is that most students, when they get their first B or C or D on a test, they sort of bail, they leave science. And it's a huge, huge problem because we need these people, especially like Riverside, where we have the most diverse student body. And I'm going to, one other story I want to tell. actually do have enough time, I think. I thought I had 20 minutes, so I can tell some stories. So when I was a graduate student, the first seminar I ever went to, we went up, it was at Cornell in biochemistry, we went up to the attic where the library was, and there was a professor there who was giving the seminar, and we talked to him. And we said, you know, as naive graduate students would say, what's the most exciting area? What area should we focus on? What's really exciting? And his answer was, wherever they put the money, that's where it's exciting. And that's really what it's about in science, and that's why this is so critical. They're putting less and less money into the plant sciences. So the other problem is that the vast majority of the ag workforce comes from our public universities. Vast, vast, vast majority, like probably 50 or 100 to 1. The reason it's a problem, again, is that the money, what you see here, is the average expenditures, faculty, staff positions at public and private universities. The money at private universities continues to increase. The money at public universities is totally flat. And this is where the vast majority of the future ag workforce is, at public universities. So how does this play out in the STEM pipeline? So this is, as I said here, this is how most students are now introduced to STEM disciplines. This is, you know, the horde in our introductory classes. No wonder students, especially first-generation students, are not excited by science. They see somebody up on the stage who, for the most part, tells them the facts. And as we know as scientists, science is not about the facts. It's not about the known. It's about what you don't know. So recently, and the other thing is, so the result of this is 50% of STEM majors drop out of STEM into other majors. That number is much higher, 60 to 80% for underrepresented minorities. So why do I care about this? I am, like the majority of students, our undergraduates at Riverside, first generation. Neither one of my parents went to college. I've always taught at public universities for 35 years, first at the University of Georgia, now at UC Riverside. And finally, and this is really why I'm passionate about it, is that I really think we are not training the best and the brightest if we are relying on private universities if our students are getting the best training at private universities. And the reason is we know now that, you know, for many students getting into the best schools, you know, they've had the best preparation. They've had the best undergraduate classes, the best AP classes, the best Kaplan courses, all of that. The students that come to Riverside, and many students of the UC system and other public universities, don't have those opportunities. So it means we're really training the wealthiest. We're giving the wealthiest our best education, not the best and the brightest. And this is really not good for the future of this country. So one of the things that changed my focus, I taught for 17 years at the University of Georgia before I ever taught an undergraduate. I taught all graduate courses. I focused on my research. I did very well in terms of research. But when I started teaching undergraduates, I noticed that the students were essentially bored to death sitting in these big classes. And I would finish teaching my introductory biology class, and I would go upstairs to my research lab, and the students were bouncing off the walls with excitement. And I said, something is wrong here. And so to start to correct that, I applied for a program that Howard Hughes Medical Institute had started in 2002. I applied in 2006, and it really was to get people like me, you know, our distinguished researchers back into the classroom, but bring the excitement of our research lab into the classroom. So what I proposed was essentially to replicate my lab as an undergraduate classroom for incoming freshmen. And it didn't work very well at the University of Georgia. In 2010, I came to Riverside. I came mainly because of its outstanding plant science group. It has among the best plant science faculty in the world. And that's where I found out about the undergraduates, that we also had the most diverse undergraduates, and that's where I've been focusing most of my attention since I came here in 2010. So what we started was a course that I'll call the Dynamic Genome course, DG for short. It's an alternative to the traditional intro biology lab, okay? And so we're on quarters, so the students have 5 weeks of training where they learn both computational and wet lab skills. They learn about experimental design, data analysis. We teach them about what it means to do an experiment, a well-designed experiment. They also then have 5 weeks of authentic research experience. And this is the part that I think I'm going to emphasize in the slides that remain. So essentially, I mean, it's been shown that students are interested, are motivated by authentic research. So what we've done is we've had faculty take ownership of the section of the class, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. So hang on a second. So this started with my lab and my research focus, but as the program has grown over the years, we've started to realize that the program has to evolve, and one way it's evolved is to utilize the diversity of and excellence of our faculty at Riverside and their interest in teaching undergraduates. So the program, the Dynamic Genome course, has expanded greatly over the years. We started, as I said, in like 2012. We're now up to 24 sections of this class with close to 600 students each year, okay? So as our class has been expanding, the traditional lab has been basically staying the same size because the student body has been growing. So in order to accommodate this growth, as I said, research faculty take ownership of a lab section. And so as I said, they lead authentic projects from their research labs, and students, I think really importantly, experience the passion of practicing scientists. And those scientists are sometimes the research faculty, sometimes graduate students, and sometimes postdoctorals from the lab. So, and what I see this as sort of, I've called this bridging the upstairs and the downstairs of a public university. So this country is still known for doing the best science in the world. I don't know how much longer, but it's still known for doing the best science in the world. And that's what I call the upstairs. The downstairs, where our teaching is not so good. We are not known for being great at teaching science, especially. So what I hope to do with this course, and what we've done, is to bring some of that outstanding work upstairs, downstairs, because many students can go through their entire career and not know about the things that really distinguish our public and private, but public universities. So Jim Burnett, who I'll talk about in a second, has developed with me a model which we call the plug and play model. And as I said, where research faculty take ownership, they work with their lab organism, they teach authentic projects, and they bring their passion. The more important is that our staff takes care of the course management, the tests, the lab prep, all of that. And that's really why most faculty are adverse to teaching lab courses, is because of the tedium of doing them. So our staff takes care of all of that so they can really come in, and we help them develop their projects. So this is an example of one of our most successful projects. Carol Rasmussen, who is a faculty member in botany and plant science, is trying to mutagenize a particular gene in maize. She's using CRISPR-Cas9. So the idea also is to show students that plant science and agricultural science are not your grandpa or dad's agricultural plant science. They are modern, they are exciting, and they need to see this. So in Carolyn's lab, you see the students sort of in the middle of the course, working with their maize plants. They get attached to them. They feel ownership of their project, and essentially what they're doing is they're looking for mutations in a particular gene that's involved in leaf morphology. And they end up sequencing the genes, and the part of the gene that's been mutagenized, and they're doing a genetic screen, essentially. And so she's had 5 sections doing this project, so close to 100 students working on one project in 1 quarter to do a very specific thing, look to see if a particular mutation has been successful. Another thing, I'm a firm believer in if you work with plants, it's important that students see the plants you work with. And so we've done a lot of projects working with Tracy Kahn and Mike Bruce and others with citrus. Riverside has the largest citrus collection in this country and possibly the world. So we've done projects on transcription factors and working with Mike Bruce. And this way we take them out to the field so they can actually see it and get excited about the organism. Okay, so the program is just 1 quarter, 1 course, and we realize that we have to sustain the interest over a long over their, hopefully longer, so that they can persist in science. So we've developed a broader program. So that program involves summer research. We have close to almost 30 summer scholarships, summer stipends funded by a number of sources, HHMI, USDA, Riverside. We are building an endowment. What's next? So the other thing that I'm particularly excited about is we're exposing students to ag biotech. So my husband is president of the Keck Graduate Institute, one of the Claremont colleges, where the focus is on professional science masters and on science tech. And so we've been collaborating for years. Our summer students get involved. In this case, last summer and the summer before, they have a business project. They work in teams to solve a business project, and that project is focused. It's been focused for 2 years on the problems, on problems in California agriculture. So for example, how do you increase fruit yield in avocado? And these are all business projects. So it starts with a little bit of science, but they focus on how to develop a business focused on these projects. Okay. We also have sent our students to USDA Beltsville. USDA is very concerned about the lack of diversity in their workforce, and they have very large programs in the summer to bring underrepresented students into the labs at USDA, and we've been sending about 5 students every year, and a couple of them are interested in grad school, going into grad school in the plant sciences. The other thing that we've done, which has been done at a few other universities, is in many lab courses, most lab courses require graduate teaching assistants. At Riverside and at most other universities, especially in the plant sciences, most of our graduate students are international. Most are from China. And that's because they are the majority of the people who are interested in plant sciences at this level. Since most of our students are underrepresented, this isn't a very good near-peer mentoring system. So what we've done is we've developed undergraduate laboratory assistants. These individuals either they're students who have done particularly well in the class. We have one undergraduate laboratory assistant for each section. We either pay the students or they take it for credit. And it really is a win-win situation. They become better mentors, and the students, it turns out, we've surveyed. The first people the students go to are the undergraduate laboratory assistant in the class, because they feel a camaraderie with them. The other thing we've done is extensive public outreach. Hundreds of events the Dynamic Genome team has been involved in. This is a picture of Alex Cortez, an instructor in the class for years, a UCR graduate, both undergraduate, graduate school, a wonderful role model for our students. Here he's showing young students at a Pomona science fair how to make DNA from strawberries, introducing them to plant science at a very, very young age. And like I said, there are an incredible number of outreach events that we're involved in. The other thing, so how do we pay for this? As I said, science is expensive. We have cobbled together a bunch of money from Riverside, from grants, and finally we have a wonderful donor, and that is Rochelle Campbell. We have a beautiful building. The first time we had this class in the building, one student said to us, "Why is this place so nice?" And that really, it hurts. I mean, it really hurts because, most of the buildings at Riverside and most of the buildings in our public universities are not particularly nice. And the students notice this. So it's a wonderful, wonderful teaching facility with labs, with discussion space, with breakout areas. Students also, we're now teaching we have a course for community college transfer students because community college transfer students are a very important part of the UC system now. And many of them, because they do commute, have no place to stay. So this room during the day opens up and they spend time there. It becomes sort of like a home. So as everything else, this is an experiment and it's being assessed, and I don't have time to go into the assessment, but it's being assessed. What we're looking at, does it increase persistence in the major? Does it get more students interested in undergraduate research? The answer is yes there. It does time to graduation decrease. What is the value of each of the interventions? Everything is being assessed again by a team led by Tarek Azam at Claremont Graduate University. The analysis of the impact on gender demographics. The bottom line is that the program works very, very well, but its effects are very temporary. So the program works very well to raise the grades of students who take the course in a similar lecture course. It doesn't extend beyond that. And then and in terms of persistence, it lasts through the first year, but after the second year, the students look like most of the other students. And so we realize that much more has to be done than what we're doing. We basically have to change the culture of undergraduate science education if we are to fix many of the problems. The other thing is, I think we have changed on the Riverside campus the focus of our development office. So most development offices don't even think about education. They think about buildings, they think about cancer, they think about, they don't think about, you know, if you go to Israel, you go to like the Weizmann Institute, every single bench has a name for somebody. Every single room, every single, you know, almost pipetter are named after somebody. There's a real culture there of getting people to donate to education. And I think what we have, I was fortunate to be introduced when I came here to Rochelle Campbell, widow of Neil Campbell, who was the author of the best-selling science textbook in the world. And we have been great, we've been a great team since she's come here. She now is probably in the top 2 or 3 donors at the university, at UC Riverside. And recently, in October, our building was named after her and her family, and her daughter Allison here. So I think Riverside now sees that there is a huge amount to be gained by focusing on education in terms of development office. So I think with that, I'm going to thank those involved. Jim Burnett, who has been director of this program, Rochelle Campbell, Alex Cortez, Venki Chetty, Matt Cohen, Christine Pham, and my funders. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.